So, a good starting point would be to think about the quote, a man's got to know his limitations. How do you apply that to your life?
Don't take on too much. I mean, this is the thing we were talking about with a guy carrying a giant boulder.
Yeah.
You have to ask something in to help you.
Yeah. You can pick Satan to help you so you look cool so nobody sees how you got done. Or you can ask your family and God and other people, and that you have to show weakness.
It seems like you're talking about is the moving away from pride.
Yeah. Deadly sin, right?
Yeah, because if you're prideful, you take on too much no matter what.
To an extent, yeah. That's...
Huh.
I just want to talk about beauty. Like, we know that there's, like, more beauty in other, like, sometimes, like, in, like, the old cities, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it just really hit me again yesterday. Like, just how different it is.
Just dreadful it is.
Imagine actually being there and having it not
Jesus
just
Christ,
imagine it as some, like, fake place, but see
Yeah.
it as... You really...
Just walking around Rome.
You really stand and look at that, and that's just real. That's real. Your feet touch
God
that.
damn.
You know what I mean?
That is crazy.
That's actually insane. I mean, what the hell? We forgot about that. It's so important that you surround yourself with objects that reflect positive information. There's information encoded in everything.
Yeah.
And if our structures encode just lame-ass shit, not that, that's just going to depress a whole society. All you have to do is look at college and look at the new buildings on campus are stupid as fuck, and the old buildings are cool as shit.
But they're not even that cool. They're kind of boring.
But
comparatively,
awesome.
There's different parts to it, because we have one, like, culture that produces what are theoretically our art buildings, and they produce kind of ridiculous buildings compared to this. Like, nowhere near this. And that's the best we have, because other than that, we just have this other culture that produces functional buildings that really aren't pretty at all.
Right, which is fine. Some of those need to exist, but that shouldn't, you know.
You have to be careful. But Ben's right, dude. Imagine walking around that. Like, our society looks like
Ben's been
stupid.
Dude, Ben's been telling us this for, like, years now.
I know, he is. That's the thing, is I didn't realize it till about a month ago. I was like, hey.
I've been, like, I've never really...
Until I had the trip where I was like, everything's encoded information.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm like, it is, and that's why you can't have just, like, 1-0 buildings. You have to have complex.
Yeah, dude, there's like the demon that tells you that. He does. He exists. That guy's
the best thing.
No, there's a demon that tries to tell you things need to be simple so you can understand everything because you're scared. Demon of fear. If you don't understand
computerizing.
Yeah, computerizing. If you don't understand everything around you, complete fear.
All right,
Freak out.
Time for a trip. One time I saw chimps. I was just tripping and I'm like, oh yeah, chimps saw like this forever. They were just sitting there doing mushrooms, expanding, moving Saturn's rings to reach out and pull themselves forward, like throwing out a grapple hook and then climbing up a mountain. But it takes 10,000 years for the grapple hook to land. And then that moved their consciousness forward, just dreaming of something new, move their consciousness forward until we were humans. But then when that happens, our consciousness becomes kind of dry, and we have to computerize and figure out everything, and it just gets evil. Computerizing seems like what you're saying, where it's like it's just very ones and zeros. We have to understand everything and forget any mysticism or art behind it. I think Jung's idea of actualization involves going into your unconscious and really going through personal issues objectively and really hardly. The only word to describe it is it's hard. I think this is important because, Ben, how much would you say your unconscious affects your conscious decisions? Highly? Pretty highly?
Depends on how.
Yeah, highly.
And your conscious decisions affect your future. So if you are unaware of your unconscious, literally it writes your future. Yeah. You really have to go into these clouds and these storms and figure it out and put a sunshine in there, or else your future is already written for you.
Sword, shield of God. Go in.
Otherwise, your future is already written of just sluggish rot of your own unconscious.
Yeah. It's like a sluggish on a treadmill.
But also, this is the devil, because the devil's like, go in there and figure out these things, and then you'll become a guitar hero. So be careful.
And then that's... Yeah, the unconscious, it can be a dangerous
Define something
place.
different about the two. Define something different about this so people understand.
Okay, I'm gonna talk.
Yeah,
Let's just put forward that the unconscious.
Because
you know,
one's
it's
objective
not
and one's just
a
on one
fun-
fractal.
Yep, there you go.
It's not just a fun house, you know, like it is a potentially dangerous
Yeah, it's
place,
scary.
potentially
Chaotic
dangerous
place.
things. But
So we're going-
I think this wraps back pretty nicely to my thing, which is that, like, it is really notable because, like, we made the emotional, like, statement to them that, like, you know, beauty and, like, in your surroundings is important. But they're taking we can't just put it out by emotion that yeah, it has such an effect on you. No, we gotta say.
You're
we
going
gotta
into
make
the
a statement
storms.
about that. We gotta try to explain that.
Before you go out into the storm, you better have a boat that can handle the waters.
Yeah, I mean, because it affects you to a large degree. Like it
Who do you
really
ask?
reinforces
Got it.
your identity or whatever. To like, you just can't stand around these kind of buildings, which you saw them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just not fundamentally. You won't be in the same state of mind as you are just
Standing around
wandering
shit
around this sort of null image we have around here, and that's what we have around here. We have this kind of not very much going on. We have an aesthetic, and we have it and it's there to an extent, but it's not very strong.
I mean, Eau Claire
So
is decent.
It just doesn't
Compared to
yeah, there's some decent places, but it doesn't it just doesn't it has a really powerful effect on your psychology.
Okay.
That's the point. And this is the sluggish thing. Yeah, because you're gonna just feel you're gonna feel weak and powerless, like sort of suffocating in a world where there's not a reinforcement of the sort of the culture in the surroundings. But you're given a lot more strength by real beauty.
I have one last thing to say.
Yeah.
It's really important to find a line between figuring out the simplest way to do something and just doing it.
Or the right way to do something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, that's an important thing to think about. Like, this is on like a deeper level, but just think about like a job. Like, how long do I take to build my tool to do this job? Some people would say build as fast as possible and get going. Some people would say spend 3 hours building the tool so you can get it done as fast as possible. That concept is important on a deeper level, and that's the last thing I have to.
Alright. Oh, ideological vomit theory. You guys ready for some ideological vomit theory? We were talking about ideologies. One thing you have to be careful of. First of all, what is bullshit? That's an old lesson that you ignore because it's just so daily in life. What it means is that something someone says smells, and you can just feel out wrongness in it. Bullshit. I call bullshit. It smells fishy. This is important because humans really do have a sixth sense to this shit. When someone is just blabbering ideology at you, you just don't even want to engage in it, and you're just it's like vomit. If you take in information and just recite it, it's like, how'd you put it, Ben? If you eat your food without chewing it, you just puke it up. If you eat your food without smelling it to make sure it's not bad, you're gonna puke it back up. If you don't chew your food, you'll choke, gag reflex will happen, and you'll puke it up. If you don't really deeply and objectively rationalize what information is set in front of you, and you just take it in, you'll just vomit it back up, and it's pointless. It's ideological, and it disgusts everyone around you. And everyone can smell it, but if everyone's doing it, it doesn't matter. Alright, no noises. Now, imagine there seems to be a problem with ideology. Alright, we were talking about this earlier. You can't just look into things through lenses you want to create. You have to look very objectively at the first level. I think Fractals explains levels. Just because something has 1,000 levels depth, or imagine the tallest skyscraper to it, 100,000 stories doesn't mean it doesn't have a shitty foundation. So if you spend time like building this amazing, beautiful brick building to the top of the skyline with beautifully different colored bricks and slabs of plaster, but you built it on a shitty foundation, don't be upset when the wind blows it over.
That's a really intelligent metaphor.
Like, you have to take the time to analyze your foundation. And if you've already built this building, you're going to be pissed if you were too stupid to put it on a weak foundation. And if someone points it out to you when the wind blows it over, you're going to be pissed and you're going to hold on to, they collapsed my beautiful artwork of art, this giant building I had. And that's why you hold on to stupid ideologies.
That's a really intelligent concept
Just
that
people
needs to
need
be
careful
articulated in 17 different ways so everyone can understand. Because everyone's not going to understand that method.
I think a lot of people will. It's a good one.
It's a good one. You know, I remember.
Just make sure you have a good foundation.
Do you remember me saying the same thing like a few months ago? The general concept of this whole podcast project needs to be that we discover old lessons that are proven true over thousands of years and apply them to modern day things that we can understand. Because a grandma can say the most wise shit ever, but it sounds retarded because the way she said it isn't applicable. Yeah, you say you use it, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's so true. That's the thing my grandma has said.
Ted was talking about that with the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't fucking. We're talking about goddamn goats and fucking shepherds. Nobody gives a shit anymore. You just have to apply these metaphors. What the reservoir concept is that we use our prior knowledge learned through existence and dreaming and everything we do to explain universal epistemological functions, which could be described as Plato's forms. The Bible did this 2,000 years ago, so the reservoir is dry. Nobody can drink from it anymore. We just have to fill it up with information that portrays the same analogies and logical conclusions, but in ways that can be understood by a society that doesn't, we're not just goat farmers anymore.
No, it's true.
Granted, we're worse than them, but just different.
We're worse and better, and there's different improvements. We can
I would like to say that we're worse, and they should ponder that.
That's true. I mean,
I'm not gonna agree with that.
The literal only argument is that there's food now, but it's fake food, so it's not better.
Yeah, exactly.
I really think we should take stock in the fact that we've really advanced, created.
All right, but let's let them ponder that. Let's hit the point.
Yeah, it is true. You know what I mean? Like it's really difficult for the metaphors of the Bible to apply when they're talking about turning poop in spades.
Oh yeah, so this is exactly. So like it's 2,000 years old. It's gonna be hard to understand. Please try and do this for everything. Do this for the culture you live in. Do this for a book that's 80 years old, or Shakespeare. It's like the dude was a genius, but it sounds stupid because he's speaking old English.
In a sense, isn't that the natural progression of art, though?
Here's what happens: is that dichotomies that are old and sort of accepted by society, then they seem to rot if you don't
modernize.
Keep refreshing them. Yeah. Refreshing is the right term. So these dichotomies will rot, and it leads people to being easily what was the word that wasn't psyop? Subverted by new, fresh dichotomies. These new dichotomies are often just one fractal.
Or untested.
They're often weak in a lot of ways, but they're new and fresh, and you can be subverted to something new and fresh if you let your old dichotomies that are much, much stronger rot. So we have to make sure to really, really analyze why people have done what they've done for so long. And not just move on because you hear a new, fresh, logical conclusion.
That's really intelligent. That's another restate of fractal zoom theory.
It is fractal zoom theory.
Every religion argues what God is, but none argue what evil is. It's a weird thing to think about.
That is true. Everyone kind of knows what evil is.
Well, that kind of goes with the idea that, when you're trying to establish truth, it's really difficult to establish something that is always going to be true, but it's really easy to establish something that's not going to be true. Like, it's really easy. It's really hard to prove that something is always going to be true, or rather that it is true in the habitual sense. Because that's epistemology. It's trying to prove what's habitually is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really hard to prove what is true without a doubt, but it's really easy to prove what's not true.
Yeah, I agree. That's
Right.
my mind.
Like,
that's my mind in a nutshell, bro.
It's hard to prove that 1 + 1 is always going to be 2, but it's really easy to prove that it's not going to be 3.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like the evils are just easier to prove.
Yeah, because it's the converse of truth. You know,
Yeah.
generally good is with truth. We say.
Yeah.
right?
That's weird.
That's true, bro.
That's
That's a really
really
smart
weird.
way of articulating it.
That's why it's hard to find God.